The Federal Executive Council has approved the medium-term expenditure framework for 2019 to 2021. Briefing State House correspondent after the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, Minister of Budget and National Planning Udoma said the federal government will be borrowing less in 2019 budget as it is proposing a budget of 8.73 trillion naira for the 2019 fiscal year.
2021 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy paper. It was approved and it will be submitted to the National Assembly for their consideration. The MTEF FSP that was approved today is designed to translate the strategic development objectives of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan into a realistic and implementable budget framework for the medium term. The key highlights are the following assumptions which are being proposed for the 2019 budget. Oil price benchmark of $60 US, oil production of 2.3 million barrels per day, exchange rate of 305 naira per US dollar, and the growth rate, GDP growth rate of 3.01%. In addition, the MTEF projects that a budget size in 2019 of 8.73 trillion naira, which is about 400 billion naira less than the 9.12 trillion naira for 2018.
Minister of Finance Zainab Ahmed also gave a breakdown on the implementation percentages for the 2018 budget.
For the personnel budget is 100% performed. We have been able to pay salaries and pensions as and when due. And also of the recurrent expenditure, out of 9 months, that is up to September, we have been able to release 5 months. The debt service also has been paid, met 100%. The revenue is where we have challenge. The prorated revenue performance as at the end of August is 52%. And we're trying everything we can to make sure that we harness more revenues and also to expand the revenue base and include new revenue streams. That is my focus as Minister of Finance, is to show up revenue. Because if we're not able to show up revenue, then the consequences are we will at some point have to reduce spending, and also we will struggle in debt and in servicing our debts.
Some memos from the Ministry of Power Works and Housing and the Ministry of Water Resources also made it to the Federal Executive Council meeting. From Abuja, I am Festus Ejiroge Nefife for Ben Television. The federal government said on Wednesday that the reappearance of the self-acclaimed leader of the Independent People of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, has further vindicated the Buhari-led government of all complicity in the disappearance saga of Kanu. The federal government had always maintained that Nnamdi Kanu was not in the custody of the Nigerian military. Responding to questions from State House correspondents, Minister of Information and Culture Alhaji Lai Mohammed said, at the appropriate time, relevant authorities will make a statement to that effect.
I was in London when the story about Nnamdi Kanu servicing in Israel broke out. And of course, I was not in a position to make any statement. But before I knew it, within a few hours, I saw my picture and I saw a story saying that I had actually given Israel ultimatum to return Nnamdi Kanu, otherwise we are going to, send them missiles. I just laugh because it speaks to what we're talking about. This fake news, because it's probably the biggest threat run up to the election. So having said that, I think I have nothing more to add to the issue of Nnamdi Kanu, I think at the appropriate time, various authorities will make a statement on the issue of Kanu. The only thing I think it has proven is that all along, when Kanu disappeared and the mob was holding the Nigerian army, asking them to account for the whereabouts of Kanu, I kept saying that Kanu knows where he is. He was not in the custody of the federal government, and I think we have been vindicated today. But any other statement will be made.
It will be recalled that the self-exiled leader made a live broadcast monitored on the Radio Biafra Facebook page exactly 2 days after social media went agog over a video showing Mr. Kanu praying in Israel 13 months after he disappeared with whereabouts unknown. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, had in a statement after the broadcast told Nigerians to disregard threats by Mr. Kanu in his broadcast, where he said he was returning to Nigeria with help. From Abuja, I am Festus Ejirog and Nefifen for Ben Television.
The Director General of Atiku Presidential Campaign Organization, Otumba Gbenga Daniel, says the emergence of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar as People Democratic Party presidential candidate for next year's election was the hard-earned victory. Otumba Gbenga Daniel said this in a chat with Ben TV crew in Abuja. He explained that Atiku Abubakar went into the convention well prepared ahead of other aspirants who were equally formidable.
The Atiku presidential campaign machinery worked very, very hard. We didn't take anything for granted. We didn't take any chances. If you know my own degree, where I'm coming from, you will appreciate that I try to be detailed in whatever I touch. In this particular instance, Atiku Abubakar is a first-class name. It's a name that has instant recognition, having been Vice President of the Federal Republic for all of 8 years. But more than anything else, rather than rest on ours, you will know that we were probably the only organization that went around all the length and breadth of this country, all of the 36 states, including FCT. In some instances, we went even 3 times, just to, come with our clear-cut plan, what we intend to do and how we intend to do things. So if you look at it, therefore, in terms of preparation, what we did was total.
Atiku Abubakar Campaign Director General said that the forthcoming presidential election slated for February 2019 will not follow tribal and ethnic consideration. He pointed out that the forthcoming presidential election has 2 major contenders that are Fulani and Muslim.
So I don't think this election is going to be about tribal consideration anyway, but even if that were to be, fact of the case is that we are looking at 2 Fulanis. Well, so that advantage that Buhari had over Jonathan, don't forget, who is from the South. And of course, the North were aggrieved at that time because unfortunately Yar'Adua died. And the Northerners feel, rightly so, that at the point when Jonathan was being put forward, is their turn. So anybody who now brought somebody from the North, whether it was Buhari or Aminu or Amadu, we would have won that election. So I don't think it's a Buhari thing. That's my own perspective. Now that we have 2 Fulanis, now with 2 Muslim, 2 Fulanis, you will see that that secured vote definitely is no longer there. Quite on the contrary, because Atiku Abubakar is a highly cosmopolitan Nigerian who is much at home in the southwest, the southeast, everywhere. What Buhari will not be able to get in the southeast and southwest, he will get because of where he's coming from.
Over 40 presidential candidates will be taking part in the 2019 presidential election in Nigeria. From Abuja, Muyiwa Bamdele reporting. Following the rumor mailing around the political space of possible defection of Deputy Senate President Ike Kremadu from the main opposition party in Nigeria, People Democratic Party (PDP) to All Progressive Congress (APC, the leadership of PDP has debunked the rumor making round that the Deputy Senate President Ike Kremadu is planning to leave the party. Rather, I said there was nothing in the ruling party or Progressive Congress that could attract a Kremadu into its fold. Instead of losing member, the PDP said aggrieved member of APC will defer to the former ruling party soon. There have been unconfirmed reports that Ekremadu was planning to defer from PDP to APC for allegedly losing the vice presidential ticket of the party to a former governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi. Ekremadu was believed to have positioned himself for the slot, but was said to have been disappointed when PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar announced Peter Obi as his running mate for the 2019 presidential election. As part of the strategy to claim the vice president position, Ekremadu was also believed to have rallied round delegates from the southeast to vote for Atiku at the party's national convention held in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, about 2 weeks ago. However, the National Public Secretary of PDP, Kola Olagbondiyan, debunked the rumors, saying Ekremadu will never leave PDP. Asked if the party had met with Ekremadu to determine if he was actually planning to leave or not, Olagbondiyan said the party has a way of holding meetings with its officials and others, adding that such meetings are not held on the pages of media. The Independent National Electoral Commission Act 2010, Amendment Bill 2018, has passed third reading on the floor of the Nigerian Senate. This fourth version of the document, out in Nigerian Electoral Guideline Procedure, was passed following clause-by-clause consideration at the Committee of the Whole of the Senate. The new Electoral Act, among other issues, provides for the use of card readers and any other technological devices in conducting election. It addresses the problem of omission of candidates' name and party's logo. It identified the criteria for submission of candidates as well as limit of the campaign expenses. The report of Joint Committee on INEC was presented by its chairman, Senator Suleiman Nazif.
The main objective of the amendment of this bill includes the following. 1, to provide for the use of card reader and any other similar technological device in conducting elections. 2, to provide a timeline for submission of lists of candidates and rightly captured in section 31(6) and 85(1) of the bill. 3, to identify criteria for substitution of candidate, limits of campaign expenses, and 4, to address notice problems related to the omission of names of candidates or logo of political parties. 5, method of operation. In carrying out this assignment, committee members considered and effectively utilized the underlisted as guide for arriving at unanimous resolution on each of the amended sections of the principal act contained in the amendment bill.
A bill for an act to amend the provisions of the Electoral Act number 6, 2010 to further improve the electoral processes and further related matter 2018 is read the third time and passed. Distinguished colleagues, let me congratulate all of us, particularly the Committee on Electoral Matters, for the hard work they've put in. We're able to achieve this that looked almost impossible at the time, but I want to commend everybody for their efforts in making this happen. And this will go a long way to improve our electoral process and further strengthen our governance. And I'm sure with this now, Mr. President, would of course give us his assent, and we can now finally have an electoral act that we all be proud of. I thank you all for all your effort, and also our colleagues in the House of Representatives.
It will be recalled that President Muhammadu Buhari advised the National Assembly to address several observations, including issues related to the use of card readers, electoral timetable, among others, a situation that prompted a reintroduction of the amendment bill. The Nigerian and United Arab Emirates have agreed to cooperate in the area of solar energy, artificial intelligence for the mutual benefit of the both countries. This agreement was signed in Abuja between the Minister of Science and Technology, Ogbonnaya Ono, and the Ambassador of the United Arab Emirates to Nigeria, Fahad Tawfiq Mohammed. Dr. Ono said the ministry was working hard to develop artificial intelligence through one of its agencies, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, and it will seek collaboration of the United Arab Emirates to achieve landmark success in the field. According to the minister, the federal government expressing the advantage of our geographical position along Ecuador to harvest abundant solar energy to provide energy to rural areas to stimulate national economy. Correspondent Augusto Ifena report that the ambassador of the United Arab Emirates to Nigeria has stressed the need for technological cooperation between the two countries, especially in the area of the artificial intelligence for mutual benefit of both countries.
Fourteen new public tertiary institutions in Nigeria have been enlisted as beneficiaries of the interventions of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TED Fund, which brings the total number of beneficiaries to 216. The enlistment was announced during a brief ceremony by the Executive Secretary of TED Fund, Dr. Abdullahi Bichi, following the approval granted to 14 qualified institutions out of the numerous requested by the TED Fund Board of Trustees. In a release signed by the Director of Public Affairs of the fund, Ebiko Ben, the institutions are First Technical University Ibadan, College of Education Landlords, Oke Ogun Polytechnic, Air Force Institution of Technology, Kaduna State, among others. Dr. Baffa advised the newly enlisted institution to adhere to the operational guidelines and ensure transparency in the implementation of their various intervention lines. In a later development, colleges of education in Nigeria have been advised to work towards attaining high academic standards as well as other criteria for the degree awarding institutions rather than clamoring to be changed into a university through mere name change. TED Fund boards made this known while receiving fellowship award from Adeyemi College of Education, Ondo State, and commissioning of 4 completed TED Fund projects. According to him, the fund has sponsored over 150 lecturers of the college for doctorate degrees within and outside Nigeria.